Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Clay's Couch here. I'm your host, Clay D, the one and only, coming at you the best way that I know how. And I am happy and privileged to be joined tonight by a great man, a great father, great husband, great community servant. And I'm proud to announce candidate for mayor of the city of Raleigh, Dr. Terrance Ruth. Thank you for joining the virtual couch here tonight,
Pleasure
Mr.
to be here. Pleasure to be
Good,
here.
good, good. Now, Dr. Ruth, thank you for obviously stepping up to the plate and running for office in the city of Raleigh, which is a neighboring city here to Durham, over here in North Carolina, for folks who are not local and folks who are listening in. And Dr. Ruth, if you could just explain to the audience and to the voters out there, just tell us about yourself and what brings you here to this moment in time.
Not a problem. First, it's a pleasure, Clay, to be on your show. We have talked about this for a while, so it's an honor to finally be able to be present.
Thank
Uh,
you.
no, I'm a proud Raleigh citizen. I'm a dad of a wonderful 8-year-old son. He just turned 8. He's a student at Wake County Public Schools, and he is, I would say, I'm a big fan of NC State football and basketball. And literally every time there's a celebration, his gift request is either a football or a basketball. So, so
Thank you.
he's all in terms of the college sports in North Carolina, especially in Raleigh. But also, just as important, I'm a husband of a beautiful wife, Kiara, and she's such a strong support and staple for our family and this journey to campaign for mayor of Raleigh. And she's a fan of shopping local and supporting small businesses. So you'll see her around. She has a blog called The Banana Moon, where she highlights her journey, both as a mother and also as a supporter of local entrepreneurs. And so proud to call her my wife. And then professionally, I am a former public school teacher and principal, both in several states in the South, but also in Wake County Public Schools. I am a teacher, a professor at NC State University in the School of Social Work, so I have a dual appointment, and I'm also a professor in Africana Studies. And so I strongly believe in investing in communities directly by supporting community leaders. I've been working with the United Way to build out a philanthropic arm that centers the voices of those closest to the problem. And so it's just a privilege to be a part of this city, to be a part of such great community members and residents. And so, yeah, that's me and glad to be here.
Yes, thank you again, Dr. Ruth, for explaining that. Now, Dr. Ruth, what made you want to seek the office of mayor for the city of Raleigh? What drove you to that? What was the inspiration?
Yeah. So one, I have to say this because my whole philosophy and idea around, taking this journey is to really center human beings and people. And so I have always been a student of the community, just to be transparent with
Mhm.
you. Before my formal education in public affairs, I was a teacher in under-resourced schools. I was a principal in under-resourced schools, and so I was a community leader in under-resourced communities. And so it's from that lens that I enter this space to really center strong public policy, strong local leadership, and really the need for or to build, in my view, a sustainable trust between the community and the mayor. And so, for me, I think I bring a unique skill set that allows for us to um, really build trust collectively. And so, I'm running for mayor because I am first a student of the community.
That's definitely great to hear. Now, Dr. Ruth, with that being said, what do you consider to be the ever-present challenges facing Raleigh right now as we speak, going into this election cycle? Now, obviously, election day, all of that is a long way. There's a primary that you don't necessarily have to think about at the moment. What would you say are the ever-present challenges facing this city that you're looking to take on and address, assuming that you are sworn in and that you serve as mayor beginning in 2023?
Yes, very good question, Clay. I think number one, issues will evolve over time. And so you said it's a long way off, but the human beings that are living in the conditions of homelessness, job insecurity, food insecurity, um, uh, um, their lives are being impacted right now. So I think this election is about residents. It's about community. It's about the future of a healthy, growing Raleigh. I believe that our residents have needs such as affordability as it pertains to housing and transportation access, and an anemic small business support network. And so those are some of the higher priorities for this election. And I can lead the city through this season. I can restore trust in our local leaders. And I can lead with transparency that creates that sort of united push towards a final picture after growth. Growth is an output, not an outcome. And so, what will Raleigh be after this growth? And so, I believe that I can bring a unique leadership skill set to that conversation. And I think we will do better. I think Raleigh will be better, and we have amazing residents. But I want to center the residents above the issues because I think there, if we could build the trust with the residents, we can tackle any issue.
Absolutely. I definitely like to hear that. Now, Dr. Ruth, there obviously the last couple of years with the pandemic from COVID-19 and all, and you mentioned you and your wife are small business supporters. Now, with that being said, given that, just as we're starting to emerge from the worst parts of the pandemic, as Governor Cooper announced this morning over in the press briefing there, that we are now phasing and shifting to the endemic phase. As mayor, or even as of right now, as a candidate, what would you do to support small businesses in in general that are still dealing with the economic scar tissue from COVID-19?
Yes, one, the small business supports that existed prior to COVID was anemic. During COVID, you've seen where the small business, and particularly the restaurant hospitality industry, was hit extremely hard. Most people assume because small businesses reopened that they're doing well. But when I go around and I talk to small businesses, they are trying to support their workers, and they are trying to do this in isolation. And when I say support workers, I'm saying they are trying to hire individuals that can no longer afford to live in the city. They are trying to afford health care for part-time employees that will also need support for their child care. They're trying to support um, employees that will need to make a livable wage. So if housing is going up, transportation is going up because they're living farther away from the job. Now you're talking about a wage that will need to increase. And so we convened small business leaders all through 2020, all through 21, and we just started listening. And there was several themes coming out of um, uh, these sort of listening sessions. Number one, they would like a centralized hub by which each of them can learn from each other. We ran into some small business that was given $20 an hour, but they were making creative adjustments within their organization to afford that $20 an hour from door to door, from chef to the dishwasher. And so there's a desire to learn from one another. That's number one. Number two, small businesses are still struggling to hire. They're still struggling to draw people to work. Number three, those who own the small business, we forget, but those who own those small businesses, that's their life investment. That's everything to them. And so, how do we stand behind them so that their investments, their support of the city, allow for us to have a thriving community, a thriving neighborhood, a thriving um, 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 visitor network? And so, what we have to remember is that small businesses hire the most larger than larger corporations. So our energy, our investment should center the health of small businesses. And so for me, I see three things. Number one, collect data. Collect data across the entire city, not just downtown, so that we understand the current state, so that we're making decisions that's wise and that's data driven. Number two, provide a centralized hub that allows for small businesses to collaborate, network, and learn and sustain during this season of tremendous recovery from COVID. And the very last one, um, provide the space for small businesses to, number one, sustain the gradual increase to full capacity. Some businesses haven't even reached their full capacity, their pre-COVID numbers. So what is the city doing to make sure that these businesses are reaching that customer base once again? And so there's some areas in which we can really support small businesses and really lift them up. And so during our campaign in real time, we have literally allowed for small businesses to come to every campaign event and sell their products, sell their services, sell their businesses. So we wanted to make sure we center small business in real time.
Wow. I love that for sure. Now, obviously, you had mentioned that citizens of Raleigh are moving further away from the city. Obviously, we're all feeling the effects of the rising gas and fuel prices and such. And Raleigh has been making strides in becoming very energy efficient, especially as it relates to climate change and all. But just as Mayor Dr. Ruth, what would you do, or what initiatives would you put in place to make Raleigh a more green city? And even to add another facet to that question, what would you even do as far as improving public transit throughout the city limits?
Now, both of those conversations run together. Um, I think that we have a very strong pedestrian and biking advocacy network here. We have seen that network canvas communities for ways in which it can improve safety for pedestrians to walk and to ride bikes. Um, Also, we are looking at a city that has yet to reach that walk to work, walk to shop, walk to play ratio, to where people can rely on non automobile transportation. And so there are zoning decisions that have to be made to improve access to jobs, to a lifestyle that allow for somebody to be able to walk and allow for individuals to be able to play and to be around green spaces. So far, we've seen those conversations happen in communities that have a pretty high income bracket. I would love for the city to center those conversations around those communities that do not meet that threshold. So, how do we center communities that are under resourced, under invested, so that they are living an improved quality of life, and not just those who have access to um, um, jobs
Yes.
and a lifestyle that will prevent them from using vehicles? Well, so one, that's zoning. Increasing zoning. I think the city has made some decisions to move in that direction, but I think most of those decisions have centered communities that are uh, have an average higher AMI. So how do we do that for all of Raleigh and not just for the higher AMI? The very next piece is electric cars. I think we can increase the number of electric car stations around the city, so that we are looking and encouraging and supporting the use of electric vehicles across the city. And the very last one, increase bike access, so that people can travel in and out of neighborhoods without a vehicle, and through walking. And so those are some of the initiatives I think are valuable. And I think I want to center this idea that let's do this for all neighborhoods, not just for the neighborhoods that have high AMI, but let's make sure that all of Raleigh can afford to live a healthy lifestyle.
Oh, I love that for sure. Now, coming from, as I told you before, I was born in New York and raised in Jersey, so a lot of this was in place, or at least some semblance of it, when I was used to live in the city, New York City, just for for folks who may not know what I'm saying here. But just moving down to North Carolina many years ago, I was just really just surprised about just how much more I needed to use a car compared to when I was living up north. And just the way gas prices are going, and not even just for that, but just for access and affordability's sake, just in general, I think really it can make an impact with those communities that are more underserved, which of course obviously can be black and brown in individuals. So I think definitely having more of a green city would definitely improve the lives of those. So just to go into more about improving the lives of those, obviously gentrification in the city of Raleigh was really on a surge, for a lack of better words, pre-COVID, obviously, and now we're kind of seeing that ballooning more and more, and with the housing situation, with the skyrocketing rent rates or mortgage rates. And there was even one video I seen on social media where a house was for a decent sale, and they had like a million, not a million, but a multitude of individuals just trying to take a look at it, and it was simply inquiring about it. But given that, Dr. Ruth, what would you do within your capacity about affordable housing and gentrification within the city limits of Raleigh?
Yeah, this is probably the most talked about issue on the campaign trail so far, and rightfully so. We passed an affordable housing bond a few years ago for about 80 million, and I believe that bond centered the need for increased housing stock, but it also, after COVID, it sort of centered the pace, the need for increased pace. So this market, as you mentioned, has seen an increased skyrocket price in terms of rental rates. So those who were tenants can no longer afford the rate of rent. And then the cost of housing is so high that the day the house goes up for sale, there's over 10 offers on that home, which you noted in that article. So in the areas that need housing the most, in the areas that need housing the most, we are seeing the increase of new development at the cost of long family history and generations of stories that are being lost due to this fast-paced market. Because we are in a housing crisis, there's a level of urgency that must exist from a leadership standpoint outside of that bond. And that requires leadership. That requires fresh ideas, that requires new ideas. And we are seeing the rural areas of Wake County and the rural areas outside of Wake County and outside of Raleigh expand because we are losing residents who called Raleigh home for generations. And so our efforts should target these communities with the highest priority. And right now, I think we are not moving at the same pace that the market is, and we're seeing the results of that.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Now, speaking of gentrification, we're and talking about the effects of that, especially in the southeast part of the city. And there are often times where you will see there be a intersection, a positive or negative, of new citizens into the southeast part with existing citizens, obviously, who call Raleigh home for many years or many decades and generations. With that being said, as it relates to policing and crime, what's your position on policing and crime from this prism? Obviously, you're a father, and obviously, you work in an institution with a lot of young men, even young black men. With that said, what's your view on policing and how you would like for it to be conducted under a Terrance Ruth administration in the city of Raleigh?
Yeah, I'm gonna answer that question with sharing just my journey. So I was a teacher in juvenile detention centers, and I was a teacher in long-term suspended schools. One person said, "Why would a teacher run for mayor?" In schools, you see the outcome of zoning decisions, you see the outcomes of school education quality, you see the outcome of safety, you see the outcome of homelessness, you see the outcome of hunger, all in a school building. And so I believe that we need to make the connection between our philosophy on housing, our philosophy on schools, our philosophy on transportation, job access, healthcare in the city. Crime is directly connected to the decisions of zoning, housing affordability, adequate transportation. It is at these intersections that we see the need for crime prevention. All the research point to that direction. And I believe that as we're growing and increased tax bases is entering our city, we can make better decisions around some of these more preventative measures that can address crime directly. And so for me, Clay, I see a need to revisit our thinking around housing, our thinking around homelessness, our thinking around education, our thinking around healthcare, our thinking around job access and transportation. I think it's there that we will see the benefits in our crime rates, our view of crime, our view of human beings.
Wow. Appreciate that for sure. Just in general, to what you're able to answer here, just as a follow up, in terms of the Raleigh police department, how do you feel it has been in the past couple of years since obviously the racial reckoning that we had following Mr. George Floyd's death and all? And do you feel that, for what you're able to answer, do you feel that the city's police department is going in the right direction with its police chief down? And just given that, what do you feel you can, and you just obviously mentioned a lot of external factors that you would like to work on, but when it comes to the police department itself, just overall just view their performance over the last couple of years? So what would you like to see more improved on, just from your position should you become mayor?
Yes, I think your question is a really good question. And I will only lead by example. So this campaign said we're gonna operate on transparency, trust, and truth. Me as a human being, Terrance Ruth, entering this journey of the campaign, we said we're going to lead with transparency, trust, and truth. So you be transparent to build trust, and through building that trust, you are truthful with the outcomes. So a police advisory committee was birthed out of the 2020 season. Within its first month, a couple of individuals on that committee resigned, and so we've seen that committee request information from several aspects of the city with some level of frustration. So I bring those same values to this committee. We have a police accountability board. So let's be transparent. Let's empower that police advisory board to build trust with the community right now before we get to another moment in which we have to act in real time. And then let's be truthful. And I think those same values that we are holding the campaign to, I think we should be able to hold the police department, be able to hold the police chief, be able to hold the police accountability board to those same levels, and they should be able to hold city officials to that level. And I want to be clear: the burden of truth, transparency, and trust is on the candidate, not the community. It's on the police accountability board, not the community. And I am leading right now with those three values because I must live it first before I transfer it over to any department, any committee. And so for me, I just would like to see more transparency, trust, and truth.
Wonderful, Dr. Ruth. Now, obviously, just talking about truth and transparency, and just to segue a little bit, and without necessarily speaking of anyone else, but what do you feel as though the competition out there, obviously in this campaign that you're running, is not addressing as far as the needs of this city goes?
Yeah, no, wonderful question again. We are seeing an appetite for leadership that leads out front. That's why I always use the hashtag be present. I am going and being present in community. I am being transparent. I'm building trust and I'm being truthful in real time. We're running a campaign that builds value. Everything we're talking about, we're doing it in real time. And we're building trust by saying, don't follow our words or rhetoric, follow our actions. So when we say we stand for affordability, we're moving right now, building networks that will build levels of affordability within the city during the campaign. We're not waiting. We're working outside of that $40 million bond to address housing affordability in real time. People do not want conversation anymore. They want leadership that will produce action that's equitable, action that serves everyone, action that stands on the side of residents and for the healthy future of Raleigh. And I believe I bring that to this journey. And so this campaign is grassroots, it's hitting the ground, but it's hitting the ground because it's going to learn from direct residents, people who are living the unhoused experience, people who are living the temporarily housed conditions, people who are trying to manage their small business and are struggling. They have to put in overtime to account for the low working staff. We're sitting and talking to those people, and we're learning a lot. And because of that, we're building that transparency, trust, and truth. And we're doing it in real time during the campaign, and it's refreshing for many people who we talk to.
Love it, Dr. Ruth. Now, since you began this campaign, Dr. Ruth, if there's any one particular story or instance when you were on the campaign trail, whether it was a family you visited, a local business owner you visited, or any community leader, it's such, any one of those stick out to you that really kind of touched your heart or touched you in the spirit at that moment? What's, if you have any of those instances that you can recall, share those. What has life been on the trail been like for you?
Oh, I mean, this is probably my favorite question. There are amazing Raleigheites doing amazing work. Some of them are well known, but I want to talk about the individuals that are less known or least known. I had a chance to go and attend a small business venture at Friday Market, and it was a little girl named Kaylee, and she was selling candy for her small business. And it's amazing to see that you have young little girls owning businesses and leading an entrepreneurial spirit, and they're not even 10. And she was professional. She represented the city well, and she was confident. And for me, that's Raleigh. That's Raleigh. But on the other end, I had a chance to visit a block party. This is a block party that's much different than what you would think of. They were dancing, they were celebrating, but they were celebrating something that was unfortunate. They were celebrating the history of their community because it was about to be demolished. So they were celebrating what was left. They were celebrating the last days in that particular apartment complex. And they invited me to come and speak with them. And in that, during the dancing and the people are celebrating, there was an aging woman, and she took my hands in the middle of the celebration, and she said, "Terrance, I trust you." She said, I trust you. Don't leave us. Stay with us. I trust you. The weight of the community, the weight of a need for change, of a need for somebody to stand up with community. I felt it in that moment. And it's in those moments that you appreciate this journey, that you start to understand that these issues have titles, but underneath those titles there's human beings. They're living these experiences. And so there's several moments I can go. I mean, there was another community where in 5 Points, for those of you who know Raleigh, he walked me through his community and he said, Terrance, we already have a diverse, complex, and beautiful community. And he was showing me the pre-major development areas that had, you know, low-income housing, affordable housing, um, um, larger single-family home units. And he was showing me the diversity and complexity within that community, and how it's to preserve that was his desire. What does it mean to preserve this complexity and diversity? And unfortunately, our city is not moving at that same pace, because some of those same areas he walked me through are being changed at this moment. And so we just need balance. We need somebody who's going to not just stand for growth and celebrate. I think it's beautiful, but also stand for those who are losing their homes, who are losing their history. And so it's through meeting human beings, meeting people, listening to stories that make this journey worth it. And so that's the most exciting part of this journey, to be honest with you.
Wow, for sure. Definitely. That's certainly, those are stories that definitely can warm the heart there. Now, just tell the audience, Dr. Ruth, why you're going to win this race. And tell them why you
Yeah,
become next mayor of Raleigh.
yeah. Number one, there is something that shifted in the appetite in this city after 2020. And that shift centered the community voice and the trust of the community. And everything we do, and everything I do, and every decision we make, and every decision I make, we are centering the community for the hopes of building trust, for the desire of being as transparent as possible, and really being as trustworthy to those who are putting their faith in me and in the campaign to lead the city well. And so it's through that transference of the community over to the campaign, I believe that we're going to win. I believe that people are seeing what we're trying to do, and they're having faith in the process that we're building. We're leading a different type of campaign. We're not promising, we're doing. We're, we're not putting out a 5-step process. We're doing the 5 steps in real time. And so everything that comes into the campaign goes towards community. We don't want you to trust our words. We want you to trust what we do. And that, I think, is the appetite that's desired by the city right now.
Wonderful. Now, Dr. Ruth, I know you're a busy man, you're a family man, and you have a lot of work to do on the campaign trail. So tell folks how they can make you the next mayor of Raleigh, how they can make you, how they can make it happen in reality. How can folks get involved, donate, join the cause, join
Yes.
with you in this journey?
Yes. Number one, just visit truthforraleigh.com. That's TRUTH. That's my first initial last name, for Raleigh.com, FOR. And in there, you'll be able to, number one, donate. You see my campaign speech announcing my desire to lead the city. Number two, volunteer. Join the Truth Tour. We have an event coming up April 9th, and we'll welcome you out there. We always center small businesses, or you see small vendors. We also centered arts. And so we have artists out there who are singing or displaying their art. And then finally, we are in collaboration with the Reverend White Barbershop. That is a historic family with a historic barbershop who is standing with us during this campaign. And so come and join us at that time. And we are on all the social media platforms. So please visit us at Truth for Raleigh on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We'd love to hear from you. Love to talk with you. And again, April 9th at 11 a.m. We'd love to see you.
All right. Well, thank you again, Dr. Ruth. You have a friend and supporter in me. You're a great, fantastic man. And we're going to claim this victory for you. So definitely we're going to work hard and make sure that everyone comes out and turns out to vote for you, and make sure that folks donate and everything else. But thank you again for joining us here tonight on Clay's Couch.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.